Hello and welcome to Gardening in 58 North. In this video I'd like to give you an update on my Amaryllis bulbs. So the last video I did, I think it still had lots of leaves on them, but as you can see this one's lost all its leaves, it's ready to go into a dormant period, and this one has only got the one leaf left and the rest have all died off, and this one even will die off in probably a few days or a few weeks time. So they're actually doing really well. This is the best they've ever been despite them looking not like much, and the reason I can tell this is the best they've ever been is because I've never had bulbs this big and this fat in these pots before. You can see absolutely huge, it's pretty much the size of the pot, and in fact this pot here has been warped. You can see it's an oval shape now, it's no longer a circle because it's been squished by the bulb, because the bulb has grown that much, and they're really big fat solid green bulbs, really healthy, not soft at all. So I'm expecting them to have a really good display this year. Now ideally I probably should have put them in a bigger pot. You can see they're not very big at the moment, and this is a good time to do it because they're dormant, but I'm actually going to leave it this time, and the reason for that is if you disturb the roots they don't tend to flower as well, and because these are the biggest bulbs I've had, I want to try and get a really good display this year. So maybe next year I'll repot it. I'll definitely have to repot it soon. The bulbs will shrink down in size as they flower because they'll use all that energy stored in the bulb that'll be put into the flowers, so they'll be fine over the summer, but come autumn time they'll probably be really bursting out of this yet again. I'll just have to keep an eye on them. So there's not actually much work I need to do in them at the moment. You can see here as well another indication that they've grown a lot, and that's the compost. Compost was several centimetres below the height of the pot, but you can see now it's actually above the height of the pot. That's just because the bulb has grown so much it pushed the compost up and out. So I've pretty much stopped watering them completely. I'm letting the compost dry out completely on the surface and then just giving it a tiny amount just so there's a little bit of moisture in the soil, but they're basically dry at the moment, and I won't start watering them properly until they show any new signs of growth. So all I'm doing in this video is I'm going to be tidying up all these loose dead bits here just to make it look nicer. But if there's any brown bits that are actually attached to the bulb, I'm not going to forcefully rip them off because that could damage the bulb. So there we are, that's looking a bit tidier. As I say, this doesn't give any benefit to the bulb. There's no reason why you need to remove any of the brown dead bits. They're not causing any issue to the bulb. And the only reason I've done it is because it looks a bit neater, it looks a bit nicer for when it does start flowering again. So I'm not sure how long I'll have to wait. It could be a few weeks, it could be a few months until these flowers. It's just a waiting game really when you've got the bulbs dormant. So looking at them, they're both pretty similar in size. I don't think there's much difference really. They're both a decent size. This leaf is almost breaking off by itself, but as I say, this is going to fall off soon anyway, that leaf, because it's at the end of its growing season. It's now in its dormant phase, but they've certainly swelled up well. This one is slightly further ahead, it's already lost all its leaves, and if I very carefully show you the top here, there is a tiny little shoot starting to come up, so it's starting to put on some growth. It's just a little curved section there underneath my fingernail, that's the first sign of life. Now it doesn't look particularly like a flower, but it looks more like a leaf, but when it's that small you can't really tell. But hopefully the best thing that happens is if you have flowers without leaves, just because it looks nicer, because you just have flower and the leaves aren't detracting from your flowers, but quite often you do get leaves and flowers at the same time. But hopefully this year I'll get a flower first, and then just as the flower dies then the leaves come up. That's the best scenario, but it doesn't always happen like that, but it often comes up nice like that. So that's them for now. So as I say, I'll keep them dry, minimal amount of watering, just keep them from getting completely bone dry. Then as soon as they start putting on growth, I'll start watering them more, keeping the soil damp, and I'll just give them a tiny bit of feed, but they don't really need any feed at the moment because the whole autumn I've been feeding them with a very high potassium feed, so that all the feed is actually stored up in the bulb at the moment, and there's very little feed that they need. So there'll be lots of energy and food in there ready to grow up the flower. So they don't need any real sunlight, they don't need any more feed or energy because that's all stored for the season. What they will need is some sunlight just so it doesn't get too leggy. If you don't give them enough light, they will get very, very tall. I mean, these stems, even with sunlight, will get about 2 or 3 foot tall. So without sunlight, they can get well over 1 meter high, and then they just fall over because they're too top heavy. So as soon as it does start to grow, I will put it in a bright sunny location just to keep the stems a bit shorter, stop them getting too large. I think that's it for now for these bulbs. and I'll give you guys an update when they start growing, and hopefully I'll get some beautiful flowers again. Last year they did really well. I was really happy with them, both bright red. I'll put a link in at the end of this video so you can see how they looked last year. And I'll probably also try and do another time lapse, because I was quite happy with the time lapse last year, but this year I've got a better camera, so hopefully I can have an even more spectacular time lapse. So that's it for now, and as I say, I'll give you guys an update in probably a few months' time. So it's been a couple of days since I videoed that, and since then I've suddenly noticed that there's a second shoot coming up here, and this is definitely a flowering shoot, and you can tell that because there is a slight notch in the top of it, whereas this one here is a leaf and there's a point at the very top. So let's show you close up again. So let's get that in focus. See at the top of this one, there's a point and it's just smooth over, whereas this one at the top of it, at the point, there's a slight notch going inwards, and that shows me that's a flower bud. So we've got at least one flower stem going to grow on this in the next few weeks, and as I said, I'll keep you updated as it does.